transform them? How can pre-existing companies such as Apple, which is making a great impact, or Amazon, or you know everything constituting the fashion layer, how can we transform it into becoming a long now business?
Right. Well, full disclosure, Jeff Bezos of Amazon is the funder of the clock project that I'm working on here with Long Now. And but when, for instance, when he took that company, when he took Amazon public, he wrote a letter called "It's All About the Long Term," and in it he outlined the fact that if you're a business and you're competing with everybody in the near term, you're competing with 95% of the businesses. If you're playing a longer game and you can set your company up to play that longer game where you're only you're thinking 7 to 10 or more years in advance, the number of people you're competing with is vastly smaller.
Wow.
And he was ridiculed and mocked for that opinion at the beginning of the company. Nobody ever thought it was going to make it past the original tech bubble of the 2001 era, but obviously it's thrived immensely since that time. And it was because he was looking out beyond where everybody else was willing to look, and making investments that were going to play out over at least 5 to 10 years, if not longer. So I think those are the types of choices you can't sacrifice everything of your present for a longer future, but it's kind of like the compound interest of building a better civilization. Just like putting a little money in the bank every year,
Yeah.
means that you can have a retirement. If you take some percentage, if and I should also say that having a long-term view requires a certain amount of security in your daily life. Like obviously, if you're barely surviving for food and shelter, it's very difficult to think long term. So
Right.
it's a place of privilege to be able to think long term. But if you are able to have some of that privilege, using a little bit to kind of put away a little bit for that future, whether it's a saving or whether it's a plan that can play out, that can be leveraged over that time, those acorns in the ground that you
Mm.
you plant yourself, that in 500 years time, after a little bit of care and feeding, can solve the problem that was intractable to you, is really the kind of things to look for.